Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. My name is Caroline Colas, and I am the Senior Director of Health and Wellness at the Marlene Meyerson JCC Manhattan. And I am your host on the Positive Psychology Hour, a series that we do in partnership with the Whole Being Institute. And it's really about the science of human flourishing. How do we stay resilient in these challenging times? Well, we do it by joining together in what I call our Zoom unity, our community. And today, Julia Mines is back in the house. She's going to be talking about why fun makes us happier and why humor makes us more resilient. Because there is a lot of research, right, Julia, on fun, humor, and play, and why pleasurable activities, instead of being frivolous or self-indulgent, are actually important for our well-being and for resilience. We want to prioritize them.
Yes.
We want to prioritize our positivity. They offset negative impacts of stress, loneliness, burnout, and other byproducts of our fast-paced, tech-connected world. So today we're going to delve into the science of humor, play, and fun, and how we can purposefully influence our lives with more of this life-giving stuff. And I want to tell you a little bit about Julia. Some of you might remember she was back here in December, but she's an ICF certified leadership and careers coach and a consultant that helps create positive, people-centered workplaces. You know, for me, Julia, when I have a conversation with her, it's really about what I call a possibility conversation. She's interested in workplaces where people can grow, learn, and become even better versions of themselves. And since we spend so much of our time at work, that's a good thing. She's also interested in how to form positive relationships with those that live nearby and work with us, and how we can bring more of ourselves, not only into the workplace, but in our lives. And she has a certificate in positive psychology from the Whole Being Institute. She teaches about resilience, well-being, and positive sustainable change, and coaches individuals and groups. I welcome to the call, Julia Mines. We've been having a good time together. I'm going to add the spotlight. Thank you, Julia. Tell me where you're calling from. I forgot.
I'm in Western Massachusetts, so in the Five College area, halfway between Amherst College and Smith College.
Awesome. And do you guys have snow? New York City hasn't had any snow.
We've had two snows. That's it.
This is the first time, those of you in New York, right? This is the first time on record in quite a long time. Anybody remember, it was in the Times, how long it's been a winter? We haven't had a winter where we haven't had snow in this for this long since, I don't know, 50 years, right?
Wow.
Rachel, thanks. Yeah, I think that's correct. All right. So Julia, I'm going to let you take it away. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen, and we will.
Were you going to ask me about books?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding. Let me come back. This is
I don't know if these are going to be, these look backwards on my screen.
No, I can see it. Jennifer Aker and Naomi
Bagdonis,
Humor Seriously, Why Humor is a Secret Weapon in Business, and The Power of Fun, How to Feel Alive Again by Catherine Price. So the Positive Psychology is part of the Books That Change Your Life Festival. And thank you, Julia, for reminding me. Why in particular have these books, did you pick them? And why have they changed your life?
Well, they've changed my life because I think COVID changed all our lives. As we all know, COVID reminded us of what really matters. And the idea of humor, play, fun, these things are thought of as frivolous. But in fact, what COVID reminded us, when people asked themselves what matters, they realized connection is the most important thing in their lives. And so these books are very much about connection. Humor connects people, fun connects people, and we're going to dig a little deeper into that today.
Awesome.
But yeah.
And so it sort of reminds me of what Chris Peterson, right, who worked with Marty Seligman in the Via Strengths, used to say, which was other people matter, right? And yes, I will put those books in the chat. Thank you. Well, at least I hope I will. Are Are they in, or maybe Julia, you can do that at the end. We'll figure it
We'll
out,
do.
Deb. Don't
We'll
worry.
get it to you. We
Yeah,
will
we'll get it
totally
to
get
you.
it to you.
Yeah.
But the main theme of this book is what we pay attention to, we see more of. And that's called the priming effect. It's a psychological term. And what I love about this book is she really helps us identify, discover interests, hobbies, passions, in case we don't know where to get enough fun or how to create more of it. And it's life-giving, she tells us, and we'll look at that today too. And what I like about this book is it talks about how humor humanizes workplaces. And it's a funny book to look at, and great lessons on how to bring it into the workplace and some of the caveats around doing that. And by the way, these two authors are Stanford professors, and the course they teach on humor in the workplace gets as much credit for students who take it as the accounting in the finance department. And this person is a science journalist. Interestingly, they both gave TED Talks this year, and both of their TED Talks wound up on the 10 best talks of 2022. So the people are speaking. We want it.
Awesome.
There you go.
Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and let you share your screen. We're in for a real treat, everybody.
Okay.
And I'm going to look up those books and put the links in them, where to get them, in the chat. And so, okay. And play from the start. And we see it. You're all
Terrific.
set.
So it's not an accident. And actually, would you do me a favor? Could you please put in the chat, everybody, something that made you smile today? And Caroline, if you would just read off a few of those, that would be interesting.
Sure.
Because here's that priming effect. We're gonna
my
practice
cat's
looking. Yes.
Antics. Oh gosh, we've got my cat's antics, a bird chirping outside my door, a dog, a small doggie, my dog playing, my dance class made me smile today. My shoes, I have flowered shoes on today. They made me smile today.
Totally. Yeah.
My new puppy greeting me with a very good morning, thinking of my conversation with my son. Oh no, another cat lying on her back with her belly up. The sun is out, even though it's cold out, it's frigid.
Beautiful. Well, could you do this now for me, folks? And Caroline, would you just report out to me? Because I'm not seeing the people, the beautiful people who I saw earlier. Would you give by a show of hands how many times you think you smiled today? Like 5, 10, 20, more than 20, give a thumbs up if you would.
Hang on one second. Actually, it would be easier for all if we could just put your number in the chat. 3.
Great idea.
Said someone. Anybody
3
else?
smiles.
At least 20, said Joanne. 5. Judy said 6. 0, said Sherry.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's a fabulous demonstration of something that Naomi Bagdonis and Jennifer Acker would call going over the humor cliff. Somewhere at around the age of 20, when we enter the workforce, we lose our humor. The good news is they tell us it comes back again around the age of 80. The bad news is the average life expectancy is about 78 years. So today we're going to look at the impact of smiling, which and humor and fun and play. British researchers tell us that one smile is like eating the equivalent of 2,500 chocolate bars. We get that kind of kick from it. Even fake smiling calms the limbic system, which is the emotional center of the brain. And some research tells us that Botox improves depression because you can't frown. So I'm inviting you into a smiling practice. Even if you have a fake smile on your face, consider turning the corners of your mouth up, because today is about how to learn to take ourselves not too seriously even though there are pretty serious things in the world. The brain actually can't tell the difference between a real smile and a fake smile. Okay, so it's not an accident that I became a student of humor, fun, and play. I was standing on the schoolyard when I was 11 years old, and somebody I did not even know came up to me and stared in my face and said, "You are so intense." Now, I'm not even sure I knew what the word intense meant, but I got the vibe of it. And not only was her behavior kind of rude, but the other truth was that she was telling me some interesting information about myself. I didn't necessarily want to be that person. I wanted to be the person who connected deeply with others. And so I became an observer of what, in fact, connected people. And this, today, are some of those discoveries. So, today is going to go like this. I'm going to move you down here. I'm going to do a little talking up front, making the case for why levity is important. You'll get to share your wisdom in breakout rooms, and then how to take it home so you can do more of it, presuming you want to do more of it. What this workshop is not, it's not an exploration of what this workshop is, it's an exploration of why we should take levity seriously. And for the moment, I'm glomming them all into a pile together, and I'll show you why that is in a moment. It's a chance to try on a levity mindset. It's also an invitation to explore additional ideas about accessing and deepening joy and connection. This workshop is for you. You are in the right place if you've ever said, "I'm not funny." If you've ever said, "I don't know how to tell jokes," and are curious about how to get more of the good stuff. Here's the truth. Levity is not about telling a joke. Think about a time, if you would, when you were with a friend, a relative, a colleague, and you were sitting around, you were having a good time together. You were smiling, and you were probably laughing on occasion. The deal is, nobody told a joke. You were just sharing about your lives, you were sharing observations. You were telling stories about things that may have happened to you. Levity is about becoming present, connecting to others, and just being yourself, or letting some part of yourself go. Do you folks have something to write with? It would be great if you made a little note on a piece of paper. And here's what I'd like you to jot down. What might be, and you may not know the answer quite yet, but I'm still going to put the question out. What might you need to let go of, or perhaps add to some part of you so that you could have more lightness? And there's no judgment on this. We're just making a note. Today, you're going to take it home. This is all geared to you taking it home. And this may help inform you, like my day on that schoolyard. Levity is about taking a risk. We have to try something we may not have tried before. What is levity? Because I've been using that word a lot. It's lightheartedness. And the research tells us that it is actually essential for our health and happiness. It's not frivolous, it's not an add-on, it is something that should actually be prioritized. So when you go into the literature on levity, There are different silos of, or different buckets of research, and they comprise these different categories, but they all lead back to this thing called levity. They all reference levity, they talk about levity, even though they're doing this in separate silos. So one area is play that's researched, another is humor. It appeals to a sense of the ludicrous or absurdity, incongruity, funny, amusing, being able to be funny or amused, similar, comical, funny, funniness, hilarity. You already know this. Another bucket is laughter that's researched. This is the action or sound of laughing. Used in a sentence, he roared with laughter. And just reading the similar words here make me smile. Laughing, chuckling, chortling, guffawing, giggling, tittering, sniggering, cackling, sputtering. When was the last time you guffawed, chortled, or cackled, if I may ask? And then there's this. There's this interesting category defined by Catherine Price. She calls it true fun. She tells us that we are very sloppy with the way we use the word fun. We say, hey, that was really fun. Great to see you. Let's do it again. When it was neither a lot of fun, and we probably don't want to do it again. And so she interviewed thousands of people around the world. And in the stories she heard about what makes people connect and what is most memorable, we're talking about the lifetime memories, she found that these are the qualities that make things memorable. And she called them true fun, distinguished from this other thing of fun that we bandy about. And the things that all these stories had were they had playfulness, connection, as in they felt a kind of intimacy with others, and flow. Flow is that magical state that we've all experienced when we're doing something that's meaningful to us, time disappears. And this also happens when we're truly engaged. And this flow state, rather, is exactly what we're in when we're in this state of true fun. So true fun needs all three of these. Any of these alone are great, but together they create the stuff that happy lives are made of. And for this reason, she says, this must be essential to our lives. We must prioritize it. She also tells us that true fun is not just an activity. That's the fun thing we call. It's actually an emotion. It's a feeling. It's the way we feel inside, and anybody looking at it would be able to tell. Check out these two guys. They clearly are having true fun. That's Desmond Tutu. That is the Dalai Lama. So now I'm going to glom them all together again, because they all lead back to this thing called levity. These are the benefits. Having more of it makes us more creative and better problem solvers. It creates instant trust and builds bridges. People who laugh together, even strangers, reveal personal things to each other afterwards. It emboldens others around us to also be playful. When we demonstrate that we're playful, it gives other people courage to do the same. Remember earlier, I said it's a bit of a risk. It makes us more confident because we take more risks. Here's a case of the upward spiral that we know about from other positive emotions. It makes us more confident when we take a risk. We feel more confident. When we feel more confident, we take more risks, and upwards we go. We become more skillful at managing uncertainty. We trust ourselves more. This is like an improviser's mindset. In workplaces and in the rest of life, people who have this levity are actually perceived as more trustworthy, smarter, likable, and do better work. So even though workplaces are very, 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 very serious places, because we do very serious things, we're there to make money. Workplaces where there's greater humor and levity, those places have more psychological safety. The boss, the leader, actually likes employees better who have a sense of humor. They also perceive them as doing better work, and they think they're smarter. It turns out we also like funnier bosses because they seem more accessible. They seem like us, regular people who we can reach out to and talk to. Levity energizes us. Just to remind you what it looks like, because it is visible, here are these guys. These are not young people. In fact, one of them is no longer with us. Do they look energized to you? Levity prevents and reduces burnout because we feel more connected to each other. It changes our brain chemistry for the better. The truth is, we cannot simultaneously be anxious and afraid while we're feeling joyous and laughing. And the last benefit is it just feels good. Can anyone relate to that? Just raise a hand. Yeah. So I wonder, Caroline, would you put us into breakout rooms for 2 minutes?
Sure, we have 34 people. So we'll have a few breakout rooms. Hang on one second. I just have to give me 1 second, you guys.
Absolutely. And by the way, Caroline is a star. Sorry, I shouldn't have made you laugh. But she's been so helpful with all the tech behind the scenes.
All right, so we are going to have you jump into a breakout room. Remember, you are not obligated. You can stay in the, and what would you like them to do in the breakout room?
I would like you to tell your partner, you're going to have 2 minutes each. Tell your partner a time you experienced levity. Just tell your partner the story of that.
Okay, so we'll see what we've got here. Off you go.
Off you go.
And you have to push join if you are going to do that.
And you know what? Would you give them a
Sure.
a 2-minute warning so they can swap?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me just make sure. If you're not, some people haven't. I'm going to move to room 1. Okay. I'm going to move to room 1. Okay. Oops. Just make sure everybody has someone. And let me stop the recording. Oh, pause it.
I'm going to stop sharing. Oh,
sure.
I'm going to do, but will you help me back do that,
sure,
to do that if I
course.
need that? Okay, thank you. Great. And I'd love to see everybody. So I'm going on gallery view. So I wonder if anybody would be willing to share what it was like to share a moment of levity. And actually, maybe I need to take one step back and ask, were you able to find one?
Hi, this is Barbara. I'd like to share something.
Okay.
One of the things that happened in my group with Ruth and Nancy is I have a huge smile now because we clicked so well in our stories that we just exchanged phone numbers and may see each other. And I've never talked to them before, so I have a huge smile for that.
Yes, proving the science of this. Yes. Congratulations. How lovely that is. Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Isn't that wonderful?
Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you,
Mhm.
Barbara. Anyone else want to share? Claire, you're unmuted. Did you want to share? Or
Want me to share?
Madonna? Yeah,
Yeah,
Madonna, go ahead.
Well, it was at first frustrating because I couldn't hear my partner. I never could hear her, but she could hear me. So I told my story, and then I thought, well, we just kind of have to look at this as with a sense of humor. I mean, this has happened and it happened. So I just told my story, but it was the response to it that was the important part, right? I didn't get angry or was frustrated at first and disappointing. I guess it was disappointing because I couldn't hear her story.
Sure.
But to look at it with this spirit of levity, oh well, this happens.
Yeah.
And that's also levity, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's also the chemistry of it. And the priming effect, where we focus, actually primes the brain to look for that. So well done, you, on that. Truly. And resilient.
And my partner.
And your partner, yes. Where is your partner? If you would wave.
I don't see her.
Oh, okay.
Her name didn't show up, and I didn't see her when I flipped the screen, so I don't know where she is.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Yes. Oh, there. I see a wave down there. And what?
Oh, there she is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Connie.
All right. Beautiful. One more, perhaps, what it was like to share the story of levity.
Well, I can comment.
Mm-hmm.
Lori, I went into the room and frankly, I've been very blue. There's some interpersonal stuff going on in my family, and it's negative week,
Mm-hmm.
shaky and teary and all that. So I went in and I said, geez, I signed up for this way before this awful week happened. And there was just myself and another lovely lady, and I admitted that really didn't have much of levity to say. So, and then my little dog popped over here. It's right next.
Yeah.
And you smile, and then it's, no matter how down you are, it shows you you can be brought to levity pretty quickly. That's the whole thing about it. And I smiled looking down at him, and my partner in the room was wonderful and supportive. She said, I love dogs. Tell me about the dog. So that was a good interaction, and I thank you if you're here. And
I'm here. It's Debbie here. That conversation made me laugh and smile so much. I could feel the endorphins kick in. So thank you for that.
thank you for helping me pull out of that dark place and smile and giggle and tell you the story of how we got him. And
Beautiful. And that's really also demonstrating how being a human, where there's real suffering, it's a situation of both and. It's not either we're suffering or we're feeling light and cheery. It's both and. We can have both. There's a moment for one, a moment for another, and sometimes we can even have one inside the other. So well done. Would you be willing to, it's great when people are oops. I am not seeing
It's
the
great
rest of
when
the-
people are like-minded, but I found some at work would not take me seriously given my playful nature, or they would make me feel like I should be more
Oh,
adult.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we do live in that culture. And the hope is that one is protective of themselves, because when we are playful, we're also a little more vulnerable, especially if other people aren't playing along. So I'm sorry that's the workplace you work in, but it's also a fact. If you open the dictionary and look up any of the words I shared, all of those definitions include frivolous. But in fact, we know that workplaces where there's more humor, there's also more creativity, more trust, more innovation. Workplaces a lot talk about innovation, but there's a lot of lip service out there. So if there's no humor, I'm also calculating that it's impacting the bottom line. And I hope you take your beautiful, playful spirit to a place where you can be more playful. Okay,
Did you want to share your screen again?
I sure do. Okay, now.
And then Joanne put something in the chat that she said that is impossible not to laugh. So if you can click on that link, everybody, you might get a nice giggle.
Oops. Okay. So
We can see it.
5 Ws, how did you, okay, I've got to get rid of this guy. How did you know?
Do you want to go back one?
Maybe a time you experience living. Okay, I'm just gonna. Okay, so what do you already know? What do you know? When we were in our chat room, in the main room, some interesting awarenesses came out about what is so great about levity. We heard some already. Caroline shared that levity is a great coping strategy. And Stephen shared an interesting story, if I may. Stephen, are you in the house, in Caroline's words? Yes. Stephen, would it be okay if I shared what you shared? Well, humor is a way that instantly connects people, as we're discovering, I think. And sometimes it goes really well. And this is to your point about your workplace, sometimes not so well. So it's really an opportunity to make choices. And it's also a chance to say, there, puppy, there, puppy, a little self-compassion, because it's not always going to go to plan. I once had an experience of going to the New Yorker Festival. They had the magazine, they have a conference-like thing every year. I went to a session on humor, and it was with a satirist named Andy Borowitz and a humorist who writes, makes cartoons, Bruce, I forget his last name right now, but he was talking about if you want to go into the humor business, especially in magazines, making cartoons, you won't make a ton of money, but you can make a living. Now, moments earlier, I had seen Steve Martin, the comedian, slithering into the room with his inimitable smile. And he sat down in the back and he was listening intently to this conversation. And after this guy said, you can earn a living. And I raised my hand to ask a question. And I said, well, how much money is that exactly? And the room erupted in laughter. I was not trying to be funny. I was just being truthful. Has anybody else had, and Steve Martin's laugh rolled from the back of the room down to the front of the room. Has anybody ever had the experience of saying something truthful and then getting a laugh? or actually just saying anything and people are laughing. Has anybody had that experience?
Yes, I have. And by the way, Stephen said it's okay to share his experience. He
Okay.
texted in the chat. I
Great,
once
thank
said
you.
something on a cruise ship, which was just under my breath. And it was somebody had been on, they asked, how many times have you been on a cruise ship? And everybody said, oh, 1 time, this is my first time, 10 times, 12 times. And there's one person that said 35 times. And I said, what are you, homeless? And I was just being like sort of flipped to my husband, who has a very sarcastic sense of humor. And it wasn't and somebody heard me and we just cracked up because it was so unlike me to say something like that. And it was also funny in that moment,
Right. So sometimes saying, we don't know we're planning to be funny. And that is something that we should know. Being funny is not about showing up and asking yourself, am I being funny? It's actually about just paying attention, saying what's true, saying what you're observing, and noticing how is the other person receiving it, becoming a good listener, actually. Something I really loved that Stephen, you said, was about how you will, at something like a business mixer, you might share a joke right out of the gate. And you also described yourself as being someone who's shy. Well, that takes a lot of courage to take that kind of risk. But Stephen also shared it really deeply connects and diffuses what's potentially a tense situation. Can anybody else also relate to that? Okay, Stephen, do you want to add anything to that? Okay, I'm going to keep moving forward then. Okay, so what do you already know? You might make a note to yourself, and these are questions you can answer after today about being funny. How much effort does it really take? You don't have to write jokes. Connecting deeply around this. Building trust. We heard the story of you talking about, I can't see the screen, so I don't see your name. I'm sorry, but your dog. And the group who shared phone numbers, it built a kind of instant trust. Anybody make some discoveries about why it might be good for you? Anything else? Does anybody have anything else to share that they'd like to about discoveries they may have already made?
I thought it was interesting that you said that when you smile, the brain doesn't know the difference.
Right.
That was new to me.
Yeah. And, have you all seen statues of the smiling Buddha? It makes you wonder, is the Buddha smiling for real or something else? Okay. So I want to share some of the rules of improv comedy. Some of you may already know them, but they're good for life as well as improv. Here they are. Yes, and if you want to be funnier or connect with someone else, take the moment that's offered to you and build on that. So let's say somebody's handing you a vase and says, this is a bar of soap. Instead of saying, that's not a bar of soap, that's a vase, instead say, yes, that is a bar of soap, and I sure would hate to drop that in the shower. So you're building. Does that make sense? Yep, okay. Make your partner look good. Make people feel like you have their back. And that's what funny people who want to connect do. Again, Stephen, when you're connecting at those mixers, the kind of humor that you demonstrated was the kind that puts everyone at ease. Decide that mistakes are gifts. So if we have a humor fail, let that be okay. Let it go. Keep moving and try it again another time. Start before you're ready. Maybe you've had a bad day. Maybe you don't feel particularly courageous, but try it anyway. See what happens. The worst that happens is no one laughs. Actually, there is one more worse thing, and there's a part 2 to the Steve Martin story. After the lecture part was done of this talk, at this session, I went afterwards to ask Andy Borowitz a question. And while I was standing there talking to him, all of a sudden, another person walked up and joined our twosome. And that person was Steve Martin. Now, while Steve was standing there and we were all chatting, and I could barely believe that that was true, about 16 people came up to Steve Martin and said, I loved you in The Jerk, and you're so funny, you're my favorite. And I had determined that I was not going to be that person while I was standing next to him. And what popped into my head was a thought that I really wanted to use my strength of creativity and figure out how I might connect with him. And I looked down and he had these beautiful tennis shoes on. They were really unusual. And in my head, I thought, great shoes. I should tell him great shoes, because he made, in his early comedy, he had a shtick that was about happy feet. But you know what? I didn't do it. And because of that, I have always had regret. I missed a moment. So my opportunity to you, or my invitation to you, is try. Take a risk so that you don't live with regret. Tina Fey said, you can't be that kid standing at the top of the water slide overthinking it. You have to go down the chute. This also reminds me of birth. Trying these things on can be a little uncomfortable, a little awkward, but there's that upward spiral too. The more you do it, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, practice, practice. And you know what? We are going to stop the slides right there. And I wonder if do people have something to write with? I'd like you, if you would, to close your eyes for a moment and think about a situation you've been in that maybe didn't go to plan, or you wish you'd done a little differently, or you wish perhaps you hadn't been so reactive. And knowing what you know now about levity and even communication, how it eases tension and brings people closer together, I wonder if you could consider how you might have a do-over with that situation. I will tell you that some of the best, the greatest leaders in the world use humor. Madeleine Albright, the Secretary of State, when she learned that the State Department had been bugged by the Russians, met with the foreign minister of Russia, and she wore a huge bug pin on her lapel. And he got it. He understood that that's what happened, that she was speaking directly to that event. And that opened up the door to a more productive conversation. So as you think about a past experience, Imagine, if you would, take yourself through the experience about how you could pull in a little levity and what could possibly change if you do that. And then you might want to make a note of that for future reference for yourself. And I wonder if anybody would be willing to share about what that's like. Were you able to see what could be different, how the outcome, what the impact could have been? Carolyn, we're dangerously close to the end, and I'd love to put them in breakout rooms, but I'm afraid we're just a little shy of that.
Yeah, I think we probably have to do it as a collective. But Deb said, can Julia share her email contact at the end with all of us? And of
Sure.
course, Stephen said, from hearing his several interviews and performances, Steve Martin is always funny everywhere except in his movies. So that's
And
great.
that was funny, Stephen.
Yeah. Anybody want to share? We'll go to gallery view about what you've written there or thoughts.
There is also a message to me from someone who asked if I would talk about the priming effect. The
Sure.
priming effect is simply setting things up for ourselves so that we will notice that, focus there, put our attention there. The brain actually focuses on what we give our attention to. We can prime our environments for that. If you want more levity, if you love to go for walks, then in fact, put sneakers by the front door. All right, here's a question for you then. How might you increase levity by 1% going forward? What's something you might add into your life to help you have more of it, do more of it, find more of it, find more people to share this lightheartedness with? How might you increase levity by 1%? Smile more, yes. Laughter yoga, absolutely. In the chat.
Oh, Deb, you cracked me up. She says, find more people that don't complain all the time.
You know, that's actually a really good point. We might need and want to protect our space from that. We might want to have a boundary and know where our limit is, our tolerance limit is. Listen more intently. Be aware of what's happening. Absolutely. Videos of puppies, kittens, and babies. One of the 4 top categories on YouTube is how-to, music, entertainment, and humor. Particularly videos of puppies, kittens, and babies. Talk to dogs in your neighborhood. Absolutely. Make friends with your baristas. Beautiful. Take a breath before responding in a stressful situation and think humor. What a brilliant idea. before we go, I want to invite you to go out and experiment, to be bold, to take risks, to play, to connect, and to lose track of time. In fact, in the words of Catherine Price, who wrote the book on fun, she suggests sending out play signals to people. Find a stranger, look them in the eye, smile, and ask them a question. Have a moment of what Barbara Fredrickson calls positivity resonance. In her book, Love 2.0, we learn that love is not just for families and friends and intimate partners. It's actually fleeting, momentary, and created by any two people in any interaction where we create positivity. Any parting shots before we go?
You know, Julia, thank you so much for this really insightful dive into humor and play and the impact that it can have, levity can have on our state. And it reminds me of when a dear student and friend passed away, Pat, from Parkinson's. Her friend said that Pat always loved a good caper. So what he decided to do in honor of her death is that she collected New Yorker cartoons and she would send them to her friends either online or put them in envelopes and send them. So he got a whole bunch of New Yorker cartoons and he put them in envelopes and he would leave these envelopes in various places so that people would find them. They were clear vellum, and then they would open them up and they would have all these little jokes or comics in them. And he felt it was his way of spreading a little bit of Pat's joy and energy into the world. And it was, I just thought, a creative way to do things.
Absolutely. I love that story. Thank you so much. It was lovely to be with you guys, and I'm so grateful that you came and spent the hour together. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. And next week, speaking of play, we are going to be Kelly McGonigal. She's a Stanford psychologist, is in the house. Please don't miss it. She's going to be talking about the joy of movement and also how we can experience more joy. This is just a perfect setup. We had fear. We have last week with Scott Simon. We have Julia talking about humor. And next week, for the month of February, we have some incredible speakers. We've got Kelly McGonigal, and she's going to be talking about joy. We've got Melissa Johnson Carissimo for Valentine's Day. She's going to help us create a love map. We have Michael Steger, who's one of the foremost authorities on meaning and purpose, coming on the 21st. And then Phoebe Atkins is going to be back in the house. She's going to be talking about mitigating stress. So I hope you will join us, and I look forward to seeing you. And Julia, thank you for the giggle.
Thank you. I did put my email address in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you.
Awesome, everybody. And we
Bye for now.
we'll send you the recording out on Friday. Take care, be well, and we'll
Thank you.
see you next time.